I just want to do God's will.
The kind of revolution that the world needs is a Christian revolution.
If you want a miracle, you've got to expect it to happen.
You are the recipients of God's grace and God's blessings, and you rejoice in that reality.
Welcome to Life Today Live. I'm Randy Robison, and I have a question for you. Are you ever in a leadership role? Of course, if you own your own business, or you're a manager, maybe on a pastoral capacity or some way at your church, maybe you're a parent and you have children, whatever you are at, there are times when we need to step up and lead. And that's not always easy. But we're going to help you today. In fact, this is Monday, the day that you are watching this program. And I'll just tell you, there is a possibility you could be a great leader by Friday. There's the book right there. 5 Winning Plays to Spark Your World-Changing Potential by Dr. Kevin Leman. And Dr. Leman, you may recognize him from a lot of different programs. He's been on a lot of the morning programs, news programs, helping people, helping corporations, people from all over, be not just a leader, but a great leader. So we welcome him to the program. We welcome you to the program as well. If you know someone who's like struggling in that area, hit that share button and say, hey, here's some tips to be a great leader quickly. Dr. Leman, welcome to Life Today Live. Great to see you today.
Randy, it's a pleasure. Fun.
So I think kind of my first question, anytime I see a book on leadership, I kind of think, is this really for everybody? Because if everybody's a leader, you got no followers. How do we know if we are, supposed to be in some sort of leadership position?
Well, let me make the first point that leadership is personal. But you know what? I graduated 4th in my class in high school, Randy. Unfortunately, it was 4th in the bottom and not 4th in the top. I got admitted to college on probation with a 12-unit load. I promptly got thrown out of college a year and a quarter later. I got a job as a janitor at a Tucson Medical Center, which is a hospital here in Tucson, Arizona. And I met my wife in the men's room of that hospital. And she was one of the people who God used to pull a trigger in my life, so to speak. And my life changed when I was 21 years of age. So I never thought I'd be a leader. I never thought I'd have 8 charter schools, 2 in Colorado and 6 in Arizona. I never thought I'd write 71 books. But my wife always says, we make plans and God laughs. So here I am. But I think the message that I want people to know is be a great leader by Friday. It's probably a misleading title because, quite frankly, you could be a new leader by Wednesday. Mm-hmm. But you have to understand what leadership is. It's not telling people you're the boss. It is being an authority. It's being transparent. It's being visible. It's being a person whose yes is yes and whose no is no. Certain types of personalities, I think, migrate to leadership easier than others. I'm the youngest child in the family, and not a great deal of us who are youngest children in the family are real natural leaders. It's firstborns who are much more likely to be leaders.
So why was your wife in the men's room?
She was, that's a good point. I saw my wife in the hospital one day, and I gave her the proverbial look that many men are capable. It went something like this. Where did he come from? And that same day, I paid another janitor. This is sort of funny, Randy. I paid another janitor $5 to introduce me to this nurse's aide. Well, that same day, as God would have it, I was swabbing down the men's room, and who should walk in but my wife-to-be. And I said to myself, oh, it's her, say something stupid. And I was always good at saying stupid things, Randy. And I looked at her, I said, pardon me, would you like to go to the World's Fair with me? And she looked at me and she said, pardon me? And I said, would you like to go to the World's Fair with me? She said, well, I don't know. I said, how about lunch then? And so we went to McDonald's and split a 20-cent cheeseburger, a 10-cent Coke. And I'm telling you, Randy, I was in love. I fell for that woman like a ton of bricks. Long story short, 3.5 months later, I mean, I smoked my cigarettes. I had the greasy hair. I was a punk. And she said to me out of the blue, she said, would you like to go to church with me? And I remember thinking, Randy, oh no, she's one of them. And if there's one thing I didn't want to be dating was some Christian chick. Well, long story short, it's too long of a story to share this morning, but my life literally changed on a dime on a Sunday evening service when the guy was talking about people who knew who Jesus was in their head, but they didn't know who he was in his heart. And I did a 180, never looked back. God gave me motivation. A dean of students threw me out of college. 10 years later, I was a dean of students at the University of Arizona. So, it's funny how life works out, but I've had a lot of minor miracles in my life.
That's great. So talking about leadership, what are maybe some of the misconceptions you think where someone is in a leadership role and they think, well, then that means, but maybe that's not what it means?
Well, that they know everything, that they're the boss. The smart leader solicits help from his people. Mike Lorelli, who was the head of Pepsi, said to me once, he said, Kevin, you got to let your people win. It's so true. When I was a young head resident, about to be a head resident at the university with 180 guys, my dear friend Bill Foster pulled me aside and said, hey, Kevin, one word of advice, you got to learn to win their cooperation. So leaders are not authoritarian, okay? And they're not permissive. Well, if they're not authoritarian and not permissive, what are they? Yeah. They're authoritative. And I'd ask any Christian to ask themselves the question, is God an authoritarian? Well, he's not. And yet his scripture says every knee shall what? Bow. Every tongue will confess. So he is the supreme what? Authority. But he doesn't grab you and I by the earlobe and rub our nose in it and twist our ear. But he's the supreme authority. So leaders are in authority, but they solicit the help of other people. And I'm a youngest child in the family. Organization is not my skill, but I've surrounded my people in my life, Randy, with people who are highly organized. I've had 17 editors in my writing career, and 16 of them were firstborn or only born children, and the other was a liar.
Okay, you keep referencing birth order, and for people don't know, by the way, your website is birthorderguide.com, so people can follow up with you there. But explain that connection and why that's become so much of how you look at people, and just what significance is that really?
And you live in the state of Texas. You might enjoy this one. Most of our leaders are firstborn children or only born children. Let's go to recent presidents. Jimmy Carter, firstborn. Lyndon Johnson, firstborn. George Bush, the younger one, firstborn. His father, by the way, was the middle child. Clinton was an only child. Well, he had a half brother, but he didn't grow up with him. Obama, same thing. And Hillary, by the way, I get a kick out of this because Hillary was a firstborn as well. Two firstborns in marriage is not a real easy match. But she was the one that said it takes a village to raise a child. Personally, I think it takes a village to keep an eye on Bill, but I won't go too political. But anyway, I regress. Trump, of course, is a firstborn child. People say, no, he's not. Well, there's an 8-year gap between himself and his older brother.
Okay.
So they never went to the same high school together, same school together. So, yeah, people know me for the birth order book, but natural leaders are firstborns. But I referenced Texas. I got to know Herb Kelleher, who was the CEO and chairman of the board at Southwest. Youngest of 4 children. If you ever flew on Southwest, even to this day, and this dear man passed away a couple of years ago, age 87, I'm here to tell you, you'll have more fun on Southwest Airlines than any airlines you'll hear the promotion to put your face mask on and all those instructions by the flight attendants to be a little off the wall and many times very entertaining because he insisted that it be fun. And here's the quote I love the most about Herb Kelleher. He said, Kevin, we're in the service business. It's incidental that we also fly airplanes. So can you be a great leader, youngest child in the family? Ronald Reagan, one of the few youngest presidents of the United States, was a tremendous leader. He could sell dead rats for a living if he had to. But these people all have great skills, and I'm just saying, your natural leaders are your firstborns. Your middle children are great because they're mediators and negotiators, like Richard Nixon was. If I asked you a question, who was known for his diplomacy in foreign affairs with China, you'd probably say Nixon or maybe George Herbert Walker Bush. But you'd be right on both those counts. So middle children tend to be mediators and negotiators.
That's funny because I feel like I've been mediating and negotiating my entire life, and I'm a middle child. So
there you go. Yeah.
And I was adopted. My sisters weren't. And so I don't know that it's necessarily like a DNA thing as much as just the way you're raised kind of thing, like you mentioned with the.
I think it is the way you're raised. Yeah. It's really not a DNA thing. It really is. And the fact that you're adopted, believe it or not, is not a huge factor when it comes to birth order. If you fall in your family as a middle child, I got news for you. You're in all probability going to have a middle child personality. But those people are great in business because they negotiate, they compromise. So a driven firstborn, that type A personality, he better have some great middle children and youngest children around him.
They'll drive everybody insane. All right. So what are some of the qualities that someone who's in a leadership role needs to really focus on to develop in the right way so that, those qualities become an asset and not a liability?
Well, he's got to model whatever those values are that he cherishes, the organization, the school, the church, whatever. You got to model that. You have to be transparent, and you have to be able to be a communicator. But when I say communicator, one of the best things you have to really be good at is listening to your people. And although this sounds a little strange, encouragement, I call it vitamin E, is really important as a leader. But you also have to be good at vitamin N, which is no. Your yes is yes, your no is no. There's a great story about John Wooden. I'm a sports nut. And Bill Walton, his big center, carried his bike into Pauley Pavilion one day, put it in the locker room so it wouldn't be stolen at UCLA. And of course, Bill was known for long, shaggy hair. Now, this is the Vietnam War era.
Okay.
And Coach Wooden just simply said to him, "Hey, Bill, time for a haircut." And Bill went on to the locker room and came back and said, "Coach, I need to talk to you. You always told us to stand up for our convictions, and you have to understand this hair is really my statement about the Vietnam War and how things are today in America." And John Wooden looked at him and said, "Well, listen, I applaud you for sticking to your convictions. I think that's really noteworthy, praiseworthy that you're able to do that. But I want to tell you, Bill, we're going to miss you." You see, that's the kind of leadership I'm talking about. We're seeing that, quite frankly, from President Trump. I mean, whoever saw on Inauguration Day a president sitting at the desk and signing one after another, and he's a man who says what he says, and I'm telling you, you can bet on he's going to do what he says he's going to do. So a leader wears a lot of different hats, and change is possible, but your people, and you really need to listen to this statement, they don't care what you know as a leader until they know you care.
Yeah.
So leadership is personal. I asked a young CEO, a woman, recently, I said, "What do you do to commend someone who's done something great in your organization?" She said, "Well, I sent him an email." I looked her in the eye and said, "That's the second dumbest thing you could possibly do." The dumbest thing, of course, is to ignore it. But how about a personal note? The power of the personal note. It's permanent. People can see it. They can frame it. They can reflect on it. So leadership is personal, and it's all about the 3 R's, and that's relationships, relationships, relationships.
How, some of the struggles I've seen with different leaders, and even in roles where I've been in the leadership role, is handling those people that you just don't see eye to eye with. They seem impossible, yet you see some value there. And you know, instead of butting heads with somebody, you want to help them get to a better place so that they can be a valuable part of the team. If I don't see any value in someone who's on the team, I'm like, go. I bless you as you go, right? Like in the locker room, it's like that's great for you. But some of the difficulties are getting along with people that you don't get along with. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. I wrote a book with my friend Bill Pentak called The Way of the Shepherd. It sold well over 300,000 copies in hardback. It's still in hardback today. But it's a book about leadership, the shepherd. You know, if I'm the shepherd and I got 300 sheep and I say, okay, listen up, sheep. I just tuned into the weather and I got to move you from pasture A over to pasture B. Now, most of those little sheep would move right along. And I might cheat, Randy, and bring a dog or two with me. But there'd be one or two little sheep who would sort of dig their little hoofs in the dirt and they'd say, no, I'm not moving. Well, what do you do with that little sheep? And we address this in The Way of the Shepherd book. And in each flock, there's what they call a hedge runner. They'll run the hedge and they'll try to dig out from underneath that barbed wire to get out. Yeah. And I answer the question, what do you do with them? With just 2 words, lamb chops.
That's what I was saying. Right.
You eat the sucker. And what a good leader does, if you have a cancer in your organization, you cut it out.
Yeah.
To answer your question maybe a little differently, there are people in your organization who are on the wrong seat on the bus. Mm-hmm. So as a leader, it's not just getting him on the bus, it's getting him on the right seat on the bus. Right?
Yeah, that's true. All right. We're talking about how to be a great leader. In fact, how to be a great leader by Friday, the latest book from Dr. Kevin Leman. And another thing that I've run into, one of the nicest guys I've ever worked with, not here at the ministry, my disclaimer there, nice guy, and wanted to be a leader so bad. Nobody would follow the guy. He didn't know how to do it. He thought he was a good leader. He was terrible. And I've found out over time, even his superiors, this is a large company, even his superiors thought he was a terrible leader. How do you know if you're a good leader or not?
Well, you know if you're a good leader if someone follows you. I was in a parent-teacher conference with our youngest daughter. By the way, we had 3 children, Randy, and then we had a surprise at 42 and a shocker at 48. So that's a whole nother story. But they said, well, your little daughter, Lauren's a leader. And I said, well, how do you know that? And he said, well, when she gets up from the lunch table, everyone follows her. Huh. I get it. I'll buy that. And so you know you're a good leader if people are saying, hey, I need some input. I need some advice from you. And if you have people coming to you and saying, hey, I would appreciate your help on something. I really need your take on this. They see you as a leader, and you are a leader. So the book, Be a Great Leader by Friday, quite frankly, it's for wannabes. It's for managers. It's for CEOs. I do a lot of work speaking for a young presidents organization. They are all, for the most part, multimillionaires. They're under age 50, and they hire me as a resource. And those guys have a type A personality. They have a thirst for knowledge. And many times when I address them, I'll say, why do you invite a guy like me? I mean, you guys know everything. And they laugh at themselves. I think a leader has to know that in their heart and soul, they sort of feel like they're the top dog. Mm-hmm. Again, to those leaders, I'm saying, listen to your people. Your people have all kinds of things to offer. And one of the CEOs that I worked with, he was the CEO of Pizza Hut. One of the first things he learned to do was learn to make pizzas. Herb Kelleher, who I referenced earlier, he used to go on the airplane and hand out peanuts when that was in vogue years ago on Southwest. So uh, you have to come across as one of them.
Yeah.
Saw President Trump when he was campaigning in a garbage truck,
Right.
found him in a barber shop. We found him with the people, with the construction workers. And that's why so many people who saw themselves as sort of Joe average citizen flocked to the polls and voted for the guy.
Mm-hmm.
Does he say some things I wish he didn't say? Yes, I could give you a litany of things I wish.
Right.
But nevertheless, he's a great leader. So leadership, it can be learned. And it would be unfair to me to say that certain people don't have an edge on that, because when you're the oldest in your family, you're the lab rat of the family.
Yeah.
Your parents practice on you. You got in trouble for what your little sister or brother did.
Yeah.
I don't care what she did. You are the oldest. I expect more of you, young woman. So in our society, we groom firstborn and only children for leadership.
That's interesting. As the father of four, I mean, my firstborn is it. And it's the personality, and it's also the fact that she grew up. We had 4 and 5.5 years, so she was leading a pack from as early as she could walk. And it's an interesting dynamic. But I appreciate you saying that it can be learned. If someone has failed in a leadership role, how do they know whether to work on it or find a place? Because let's be honest, we need followers in every organization as well. How do you know which way you really need to go? Because I've seen people struggle to be leaders and I've seen other people who decided, no, I don't want to. I'll pass on that promotion. I've watched this. I'll pass on that promotion because I feel more comfortable at this level, and they excel at that level. And in a leadership role, they probably wouldn't have made it. How do you know which way to go?
Well, I think you follow your heart and your nose. Some people don't like the pressure. You're right.
Yeah.
Just bail out. They like that number 2 or 3 position. Their personality might be more suited for that. But you know what? When you fail, and usually I'm not very political, but I'm going to tell you that when you fail an election the way the Democrats just failed, if I was the top Democrat, I would spend a lot of time looking at the mirror, sort of figure out where have we gone wrong. So I would say to anybody who feels like this might not be a match, this leadership position I'm looking for, aspiring to be, before you jump ship and go a completely different direction, examine yourself. What kind of a communicator are you? Are you too egocentric? Do you really care about those people you lead? Because again, you have to know those you serve and serve those you know. And so we're really talking about a servant type of leadership. And I think that's what Jesus tried to teach all of us, to serve one another. Good old Paul, I never caught his last name, but he said something very interesting in his letter to the Italians and the Corinthians. And he said, encourage one another. As a leader, you have to encourage the troops. Yeah. You have to inspire the troops, so to speak. And you do that by, picking up the loose papers on the grounds of the office building, rolling up your sleeves, being a regular person. I was with a man the other day who's worth a cool $480 million. And he walked into the meeting, and he had hired me to be his resource. And he went around to 45 of his top leaders. And I listened to the conversation, Randy. Hey, how's your oldest son doing in school? Hey, is your wife feeling better? It's personal, it's personal. Don't forget that. If you want to succeed in life, and quite frankly, be a great leader by Friday, could be titled How to Succeed in Life. Because in this day and age, I know it's a high-tech society, but it really is personal leadership that makes you a winner in life.
Yeah, man, for the younger generations, my kids' generations, hear that, because the technology is a great tool, but when it becomes a substitute for relationship, we have a lot of younger kids that have grown up with the technology that don't know how to hold a conversation, don't know how to look somebody in the eye, and yeah, that's the key.
You got 4 kids, and I'm here to tell you the cell phone is the new Goliath. And parents who tell me, I get my kid a cell phone in 6th grade because it's a safety issue. Hey, buy him a safe phone which allows them to have 10 or 20 numbers in there.
Yeah.
They can call anybody they want. They don't need a pathway to the sewer of life, which, quite frankly, the kids today is the internet in so many ways. So, but you got 4 kids. I hope your second one is just the opposite of your first, because that would fit pretty well.
You crazy, almost textbook. Seriously.
Yeah. Isn't it fun how God made us all different? Check this out. Identical twins, Randy. They have the same DNA. They're genetically the same person. Do you ever laugh and cry at the same time? I have many times. And when I found this out, that identical twins have different fingerprints. Why did God do that? To help the FBI? Or is that God's way of saying, you are my son, you are my daughter, you are different than everybody else? So as a leader in the family, you have to know who you're leading. You have to know who your wife is. I tell a story about taking my wife to a hotel, and quite frankly, she didn't want to go in there. And I went to open the door, and she'd locked the door. I took her to a nice 4-star dinner, and she didn't want. She knew I don't want to go in that hotel. Well, we go up there. I unlocked her door. We went up to a king-size bed. I'm already in the room that afternoon. There's 3 books there, a little note for her, 1 single rose. I pulled back the sheets. I told her I'd be back at 1 o'clock because she's half raccoon. She goes to bed about 2 o'clock in the morning and gets up late. But I know my wife with 5 kids. She likes time by herself. So I've arranged in our marriage. I've been married. I can't remember being single, but I've been married 57 years in a row. But we still do that things today, those kind of things. And you have to know who you're leading. So whether you're a leader in your family or church or whatever, you better know your people.
Yeah.
And you better know them.
In a row. I like that. I might adopt that. Okay. In the title, last question for you. In the title, you talk about your world-changing potential. And, we're not all going to change the whole world. What world should we be trying to change?
You're going to change the world in your family or the place where you work. You're right, Randy. You can't, don't have grandiose ideas, but leadership today is needed more than ever before. Our kids don't learn to talk to each other. All we do is email each other. Us men specialize in arm's length relationships to begin with. 2 men meet at a punch bowl at a party. I'm going to demonstrate what we do. Watch carefully. Watch.
That's it. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And if we get brave enough to say, hey, I'm Randy, hi, I'm Kevin, the next thing we say is, what do you do for a living?
Yeah.
2 women meet in that same situation. I mean, women hug anything that moves. Let's start with that. But they'll hug each other, and they'll be talking about relationships.
Yeah.
It'll come up what they do, and one of them might be an airplane pilot, and the other's a school teacher or a librarian. If it comes up to an adjunct, a part of the conversation,
Right.
not the focal point. So I think there's a lot to learn about leadership for all of us.
Yeah.
But you're right. You don't take on the whole world. Just be a leader in your family and in your organization, in your church. I'll buy that and be very happy.
Yeah, that's good. I've spent a whole weekend with old friends, from college from years ago, and come back from the weekend. My wife's like, well, what's his wife doing? I'm like, yeah, I don't know. She's like, what are their kids doing? I don't know. She's like, well, what did you talk about? And I'm like, well, the football game,
Yeah. Randy, we got to hang out sometime because I was driving home from our friend's house. He's a State Farm agent. My wife said, what's new with Joe? And I said, nothing. She said, well, you were in the backyard with him for a half hour when you were doing the steaks and stuff. What'd you guys talk about? Nothing.
Yeah, right.
Now she's getting a little steam because she thinks I'm withholding vital information from her.
Yeah, what a comedian said, ladies, when you ask your wife what he's thinking and he says nothing, he's telling the truth.
One of the funniest things in all of God's word is the 2 shall become one, because God made us so different. I think we did that so we'd work on our marriage, but that's a whole other topic.
That's why it's a miracle. All right, Dr. Leman, appreciate you. Love the stories, love the insight, and man, I guess it just goes in cycles. But we need leaders who learn from people who have been through it and have seen it. And I love your mentoring mantle that you have. So thank you for that. Anything you want to add before I let you go? Did we hit it all?
Well, again, just to underscore to people that you can do this.
Yeah.
But you have to have a heart for other people. I wrote a book on Proverbs 3 once. In those little 6 verses, King Solomon mentions heart 3 times. And he ends it with, and he will direct your paths. It's plural. We don't have one path in life, Randy. We have several paths in life. So some of the things that you brought up, talked about, hey, don't get discouraged because one path doesn't work for you. Find another one where God can use and bless you.
That's it. That is it. There you go. That you've just grown today if you watch this entire thing. And you can share that with someone else. And by the way, if you haven't liked, followed, or subscribed, I would invite you to do that. You'll get notifications of more helpful interviews just like this one. Check out birthorderguy.com. It'll look like that, and you'll learn some things. You can be a better leader. We'll see you next time here on Life Today Live.
I've been to the mountain.